Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian own not to control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens in the replay. This is the vault, episode 409. Trustees' responsibilities. Grow assets under management. Definitely want to do this episode today. This is going to be a part of a series. So we're definitely going to do a series with trustee responsibilities, the four responsibilities. We're definitely going to put it out there. We talked about it on the vault before when we talk about trustee responsibilities, but we're going to do it in depth. So this is going to be a series. We're doing it actually out of order. Growth is actually the third step within certain systems, and particularly when we talk about being a trustee. But we're going to just say overall, it's a responsibility nonetheless. No responsibility is more important than the other, but do they have an order to them? Yes, they do. So we didn't number it as far as the order goes, but we want the audience to know that this is equal in the series that we're going to do with the four quote unquote trustee responsibilities that we're going to put out. And particularly, we're going to talk about it from our perspective over at the Vault. So, appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens in a replay, that hits the like button. Always appreciate everybody that hits the like button, adds any comments. This episode right here is 409 Trustee Responsibilities, Growing Assets Under Management. The reason why we want to do this episode today is because we've had trustees throughout the years. People come to us. Everybody says they're a trustee or they want to be trustees. This is one of the biggest roadblocks that trustees run into. People that are new, first generations, we're putting out on the internet. We've experienced it. We've talked to families. We've dealt with families. We're dealing with families currently. Families, actually more than one person. It's not just one individual, it's families. So when we talk about trustee responsibilities, we're very qualified by having the experience through the trustees throughout the years. Just like we have the workshop and the conference coming up, the Asset Protection Conference is one of those things that we source this information to be able to cite it out, quote unquote, for free to people over to YouTube or any other platform, podcast platform that we broadcast this to. Trustee responsibilities is a big faux particularly when we talk about grow assets under management. And the grow assets under management, it's the difference between the entrepreneur mindset and the employee mindset. So we're going to give a case in point and talk about it. So a trustee comes to the trust training program and they're an employee already. Okay, many people come in that way. They come, they're an employee, and they're like, "Oh, I want to be a trustee." Okay, well that means that you're gonna grow assets under management. You're not gonna sit on assets. You're gonna grow assets under management. Okay, I'm gonna grow assets under management. Correct. You're not going to sit on them. So, as a responsibility, we could say it's a duty, we could say it's a part of your job to actively find, seek, assess, analyze, and execute the growth strategy of the assets under management. Is this hard to realize? Oh, well, who's the target audience? The target audience is the first gen that reaches out to us at the vault saying that they're either in trust or they're saying they want to be in it, but when they get in it, they got a job and they think, oh, well, I'll just keep working this job for maybe another 3 to 5 years. Case in point, still 3 to 5 years until I get off this job so I can transition into trusteeship full time. Well, when you're in a trustee training, we educate our trustees know as soon as you sign a dotted line, you're a trustee full time. And the mindset walking into that being a trustee full time, that means that the mindset is not just sitting on assets because they're there now to be managed, you're growing the assets under management, actively seeking ways to grow the assets. What we see is that families or individuals that have jobs and they come over into the private and they say, "Oh, I want to be this private trustee in my family estate." First of all, if it's about your last name, that means you're going to put more energy, more effort, more education into your family's last name and family's estate. But somehow we got a generation of people that are now okay with putting more time into someone else's last name, Walton, Musk, these last names, Gates. They're willing to put their time and energy purchasing these products from these companies and X, Y, and Z and working for these companies more than anything than their family estate, their last name. How is that a paradigm shift? Major paradigm shift to the general population. It's not individualism. It's focused on the family last name because that's what we are. We're a nation of families. So you grow the assets under management because you got to grow the assets because that's your job for your family estate. Not for the job for someone else's last name, for your family estate. This message resonates with the right ones. As we continue to move forward, you say, okay, well, I got to transition from an employee thought process to an investor thought process. It's even more niche and more finite than an entrepreneur. So everybody says, "Oh, I want this passive income trust, Christian Evolved. I want passive income ventures." Really, what you want is to have a system in place that when you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. But what most in the public population get confused is they don't want to have to do's. They just want to do the wanna do's. And the individuals that want to do only the wanna do's, they may never have a system in place. Because the system is something that you have to put in place. So when you don't want to do anything, you don't have to. It's okay that you have to put a system in place. Why? Because when you don't want to do something, the system will do it for you. When you grow the assets under management, you can make the assets pay for the management of the assets. But how many people are making the assets pay for the management of the assets? So then in turn, they're not having to go out. Most people don't want to have to go out. We're being very direct, very honest about the mindset of the employee mindset of coming in and sitting on assets as opposed to coming in day one and saying, okay, we have assets. We need to grow these assets for our family estate and put them in a position of what? Cash flow. Growing assets under management is creating some form of cash flow or appreciation. Oh man, I never had to create cash flow outside of my job. I never had to create cash flow outside of a W-2. I never had to create cash flow outside of that thought process. Well, did you have to create cash flow in a 1099? Did you have to create cash flow in partnerships, joint ventures? Did you have to create cash flow that way? Because if you did, ladies and gentlemen, growing or grow assets under management is a responsibility of a trustee. It's not more important than any other responsibilities that we're going to talk about in this series. So, case in point where people say, "Oh, I'm an employee. I got to come over to the trustee side, and when I get over to the trustee side, I'm still going to think like an employee." Wrong. You're not an employee of being as a trustee. You're not an employee in all cases. Some people say, okay, well, if I'm not an employee, we get to additional questions. Because if you're contributing to the growth of the assets, are you compensated? That's not this episode. But if you grow the assets, do they have a performance fee? Do you have a performance fee? Do you have a fiduciary fee? That's where we are. Do you have a fiduciary fee? Grow assets under management simply looks like you take your family more serious than your job. The family trust as a trustee, you take it more serious than a regular job. Some job that's paying you less than what you're worth. The family estate is to what we say, what, bring back assets? You got to bring back assets to the family estate. People say, "Oh, is it just money? Is it just money? Is it hard tangible assets?" Why not collect a piece of art or some form of art and lease it to where it's being displayed on exhibition and the family estate is being paid for that? These are the conversations that we have with our trustees and our families when we talk about grow assets under management. Uh, Specifically as trustees, it's not a misnomer. It's just one of those things that some people have not been given that out of the box creativity in a lot of areas of their life. So when they get in these positions, they definitely have to take a lot of initiative. They have to display a lot of leadership. Growing assets under management means that you're willing to make decisions, make tough decisions. You're willing to not even be wrong in decisions and say, hey, we did make a great investment there or whatever the decision was to grow assets because it should bring a profit back. And things of that nature, earning above the principal is always a plus. We are going to talk about other elements when we talk about preservation. That means not losing the money. We are going to talk about that in another episode, but particularly grow assets under management. This is a situation where many run into a wall because it's, oh wow, I'm still working, I'm still doing a job, doing something else. So how do I have time to grow the assets of the family estate to infinite? Right. Well, if you don't have time to grow that family assets to infinite, now when will you have the time? These are the questions that we have to end up asking the trustees about growing these assets because so many people are sitting on the assets. They say, "Oh, I have assets," but are you growing the assets? That means, are you putting them in a position to generate wealth, or are they just are they just an expense? Because assets can be an expense. Asset is real estate. Everybody talks real estate. It's an expense. Everybody talks about real estate for tax depreciation, for depreciation. People talk about these things publicly, though why they're in real estate. So many people say, "Oh, grow the assets under management." Well, how are they growing the assets and they're claiming a loss every year? There are many trustees that understand bookkeeping, many that engage with people that understand bookkeeping in the company. Hey, we won't say that Fortune 500 companies are underwater, but technically, what's more important, sales or debt? Because debt is where you owe someone money. That can be an asset on companies' books, but let's just say, in some respects, companies have cash flow. How do you grow the cash flow? Growing an asset is cash flow. How do you grow the asset? The asset that's already cash flowing, how do you scale it? How do you grow the asset? This is the responsibility of a trustee. How do I grow the asset? How do I grow the cash flow? How do you grow one of your greatest assets, yourself? Oh man, everybody wants to talk about personal development. Well, clearly we see that one of the greatest assets is the education of the managers. The education of the managers. So you're the senior trustee for your family estate. You're one of the top managers for your family estate. Your education for trusteeship. What does it look like? Do you have the education for trusteeship? You want to move into a position of private trusteeship. The asset is the education of the trustee because it's not about the money, it's about the asset. I mean, it's about the education or the information that quote unquote keeps an asset or grows an asset. the information that the trustee has, that the senior manager has. That's how you grow assets under management, is by educating or making sure that the education is there to provide the cutting edge tools for that trustee to operate the most efficiently and effectively in the current time and market that they're in. And particularly a business cycle, because they're managing assets, which are tools that are to a degree in systems that are bigger than us. So that means they can fluctuate without us. That means they're in a system. See, we talked to a trustee about that. It's putting a system in place. But how many people are running to the hills to put a system in place? See, a system can be an asset. How many people are running to put a system in place? How many people are going to grow assets under management in a system? Oh no, I don't know if I could do a system. I think I'm gonna put together a system. Hey, have fun winging it for anybody that wants to wing it. But for people that want to enroll in a trustee training program or come to the workshop and understand the importance of continuing education, because that's what the conference is about, is a continuing education conference. They understand that growing assets under management for sure has to look like you getting your education as a senior manager, senior trustee, period. You getting a greater quote unquote network, you finding other trustees that are involved in systems like you are in. This is asset development mindset. Grow assets under management mindset is you going out to environments that where you can grow your knowledge base, grow your peer network, and sphere of influence. Growing assets is not just financial, it can look like human capital. Growing assets under management is growing who you're able to hire for things, who you're able to put in position for things. Growing assets is growing your human capital. Oh man, when are you supposed to do this? When you sign on the line as a trustee. When you say you're going private as a trustee, because that's what they contact the board and say, oh, I'm going private. I am private. But how many people are out actively every day growing assets under management or grow assets under management every single day for the family estate? Oh man, I don't know if I need to do that every day. I'll do it every week because I could do so much in 3 or 4 hours or 5 hours or 10 hours or however many hours. But we're talking about the family estate, not your input or your output. We're talking about the family estate, the senior, the family trust. When we're talking about that, we're talking about trustee responsibilities is to grow assets under management daily. What do you say? Weekly? You say hourly? Right, hourly. Why? Because it's going to provide for generations. Why would you not put in all the upfront work? Yes, you're working for 25 years right now, in the next 3 to 5, in the next two. You're working a generation of time to put together an asset system, a system that's going to be able to provide for generations. And it's hedged to inflation, as they call it. That's what grow assets under management looks like. We appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listen, replay. Always appreciate everybody tuning in live, listen, replay. We actually have quite a few people coming to the workshop already. Uh, we just it's going to be a blast at this workshop. We knew the VIP tickets were going to be one of the biggest deals, and they have been so far. We've got quite a few of the VIP tickets, so we look forward to having the VIP dinner with everybody that's going to be at the VIP dinner and seeing everybody else at the workshop. They're always going to be beautiful. These are interesting times where you talk about, are you going to dig deep and go for your family, go for your gusto, go for the family and protect the family, put the family in the best position possible? Are people going to grow the assets? Because that does, when you say put the family in the best position possible, that involves growing assets under management. It doesn't mean taking shortcuts. It means growing assets under management, period. And so that's a part of the process. It's not just, oh, I want to put something in place. Well, yeah, you can put something in place, but are you putting a system in place that'll work when you're not around, or are you just there doing all the work? And you're the greatest asset. See, one of the greatest assets you can put in place is putting a system in place. One of the greatest assets you can do is put a system in place. But people say, oh man, I'm trying to get this passive income. I'm trying to do this through real estate or whatever. And next thing you know, they don't understand it is a system that needs to be put in place, not just a way to get cash flow. You can hustle all you want. You definitely can hustle. And that's growing assets under management too. Having a system in place will be there regardless of whether you're there. So it's still a good complement to whatever you're doing as a trustee. The asset is the system now, not just the assets that you have under management. There's a system now that manages these assets, that's growing these assets actually. It's not just managing them, it's growing the assets. So you have a system that grows assets whether you're there or not. That's very important. Very important. But how important is it? It may not be important to a lot of people. Why? Because they rather go to a barbecue. Hey, let's do a barbecue today. You know, our family estate. We'll get back to that tomorrow. You know, it's a formal holiday for most people. So, anytime it's a formal holiday, we're gonna, not contribute to the family assets that day. That's a bottom line, period. See, this is the difference between the trustees that understand that, the ones that don't take days off, and the ones that do. See, people think you could take days off and grow assets under management as a trustee, and we see the difference from the ones that are focused on compound interest because we understand that it's a lifestyle. See, it's a lifestyle. You got to build it into your lifestyle. It can't be a complaining. Oh man, I got to grow the assets. I've never done that before. I worked a job my whole life. How am I going to be able to grow assets? I don't know how to grow an asset. I don't know how to put together a board. I don't know how to interview lawyers. I don't know how to interview accountants. Or maybe you have interviewed the lawyers and accountants and you have a lawyer and accountant. You say, well, the one question we'll have is if your lawyer or accountant knew about what we're talking about on this particular channel, then you would already have systems in place and what we're talking about. And you'll be like, oh, I'm familiar with this information because your lawyer or accountant would already made you aware of that. But we understand that we have a strategic position in the marketplace. That's what happens when you're in the IP environment, when you're in the intellectual property environment. Grow your assets under management, of course. That's a part of who you are as a trustee. It's a responsibility. It's not a negotiable. It's not a if and maybe. It's not a every now and then we'll get to it. It's an everyday application. Why? Because you are setting something up to where you literally just said that it's going to perform without you for your children, your grandchildren, your great grandchildren, until beyond, until somebody doesn't mess it up. That means you put together something that's beyond you. Very powerful. And so we're excited to talk about this at the workshop, the conference, the Asset Protection Conference coming up on August 6th. We're excited about that. We look forward to connecting with individuals, talking about that at the workshop. And it's just going to be a blast as usual. But it's always very focused on families. And this is one of the topics that we're going to talk about. One of the four P's or one of the four trustee responsibilities. This is just one of them. No one's more important than the other, but this is definitely it's important. We talk to trustees about it. It's like, do you get it? You're not an employee. You're a trustee. So take the responsibility and welcome it because you just signed on to be the senior trustee of 100-year business, 100-year entity, a 200-year-old entity. That's what you just signed on for. You signed on the responsibility to make something grow beyond your lifetime. How beautiful is that? Instead of people coming and saying, making excuses, oh man, I gotta go out and cook, eat with the people or whatever, whatever. Right. People gotta go do that. But how many people woke up today and say, yeah, I grew the assets of the family estate? How? Just through education alone. Growing the family estate is acquiring education. That's the workshop. Growing the family estate is acquiring education. Rich people have information, poor people don't have. This is a fact. Wealthy people have information that poor people don't have. Growing the assets comes from the education. What information are you exposed to? What cash flow are you exposed to? Hmm. Appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listen, replay. Always appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listen, replay. Appreciate everybody that hit the like button. Always let us know that you appreciate the content. This is just one of those episodes that, oh, this is a series. And we're going to make sure that we bring it. Because this is one of those things that, oh man, everybody wants to talk about. Oh, I'm focused on getting money, trust Christian to vote. We're going to get money in the family estate. Well, we're already doing that outside of the family estate. So what happens when you get in the family estate? Are you full time in the family estate, or are you full time in your job and part time in the family estate? Are you part time in the family estate, or is that not a number one priority? See, that is the difference between what you call an elite and somebody that's not an elite. See, we've sat around families that they address themselves by their last names. Oh, there's no way you can't. There's no way we could. The last name, our last name couldn't do this. That's how they speak. You're an X, Y, and Z. Oh yeah, I'm an X, Y, and Z. They talk about their last name. That's what you are. People have been given a last name. Oh man, I don't know if I want to grow it. Figures. People have been given a responsibility. They signed on for it spiritually and still don't want to own up to it. Still don't want to take on the responsibility. It's easy to get a job, as they say. It's also easy to cater to your goals and your dreams and grow your last name and take on that responsibility. It's a lot of power in your last name. It's a lot of power in the family estate because the family is able to create a synergy and a board for the family governance, the family administration of wealth. That means you don't have to worry about ever falling out of a house. Even if you hit hard times, the family has a charitable estate that you can go live somewhere at a house because the family has a charitable house somewhere. That in case something happens to you, you can go to it. You're never without because the family put a system in place. That's the difference. That's the difference. Appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listen to replay. It's going to be a beautiful workshop August 6th. You know, we've done quite a few workshops throughout the years. People wonder, are they going to get better? We're coming with it this time. We're always going to come with it. We're always going to bring, the best information when we're talking about private cutting edge information. We've seen the wildest part about it is we've seen throughout the years our mentors go to these private workshops, have these private workshops themselves, and you see the information that's being disseminated, and it's like, how do you not get access to that information? You don't get access to it if you're not there. We see mentors only disseminate their information at those private workshops, at those asset protection conferences. And that's what we're going to see at this one. Appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listen, replay. This is just one of many in a few of the series of the trustee responsibilities. We're definitely going to talk about it. This is just one. No one's more important than the other, so that's why we actually are okay with doing them out of order. We got to do them out of order because this is the first thing that people think they come in trustee training. And oh man, if I come in, I just got to start growing assets. And they think that's the key. Well, what happened to the other steps? There's other steps, Trust Christian to vote. There's other steps. There's other steps. We're going to talk about those steps. We're going to talk about them because this is an important step. You can't neglect it. Oh man, I got a job. I'm doing something else. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where they ask us the question, do you take your family's last name more serious than somebody else's last name? This is where we see it. This is the questions that we have to ask ourselves, ladies and gentlemen. Not to spur us to, oh, you motivate us. No, it's to do. Grow assets under management. That's our job as trustees. Look forward to hearing